Yeah, my name is Simone Sterly, and I'm working together with Carla Wember from IfLS on the work package dedicated to participatory and multi-level governance decision-making tools for CAP strategic plans. And I'll just outline what we have been doing in the past months, and also briefly give an overview of all the tools that we have been working on. However, today is dedicated to only, we will look deeper into two of the tools that we have developed. First of all, I just have to see how I can move the slides. So, yes. First of all, just an introduction why these tools are important for CAP strategic plan design. And as Berenice already mentioned, the basis is, of course, the new delivery model with some key aspects. We need to do a better performance monitoring, enhance flexibility. Also, performance reporting is part of it, and result accountability. And this translates into the guiding principles for strategic design in terms of evidence-based policy making, the transparency in decision making, inclusive stakeholder engagement. It needs flexibility and adaptability, also accountability and monitoring. It needs to ensure the coherence with the European Green Deal and Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, it needs to also take into account efficiency and cost effectiveness. And in our project, that then led us to topics that we wanted to cover in this work package on participatory and decision-making tools in terms of supporting more inclusive, transparent, and evidence-based policymaking in the CAP, also strengthening governance through structured stakeholder engagement across all the phases of CAP strategic design development, from early design to monitoring, and also helping member states align their CAP strategic plans with both EU objectives and national and regional agricultural priorities. There are also some formal requirements on CAP strategic plan design and stakeholder engagement. First of all, in terms of the design and monitoring procedure, it is required that it is drawn up on the basis of transparent procedures. Member states need to organize a partnership in the design and also in the implementation with competent regional and local authorities, other public authorities competent for environmental and climate issues, economic and social partners, relevant bodies representing civil society, and where relevant bodies are responsible for promoting social inclusion, fundamental rights, gender equality, and non-discrimination. And relevant authorities at regional level are also needed to be effectively involved. So first of all, if we talk about stakeholder engagement, it's not only the economic and social partners referred to, but it is all governance levels that need to be involved in the CAP strategic plan design. In terms of stakeholder engagement overall, the member states are responsible for effectively involving economic and social partners, including representatives of the agricultural sector in the preparation, and they need to consult with relevant stakeholders. And they also need to ensure balanced representation of partners. At the regional level, where this is relevant, member states can establish regional managing authorities, monitoring committees, and so on. They need to ensure the coherence and the consistency of the elements of the CAP strategic plans established at the regional level with the elements of the national plan. They need to involve the region in the design of the evaluation plan and the monitoring and evaluation of the regional interventions. And they need to make sure that a relevant management and control system has been set up in such a way that ensures a clear allocation and separation of functions between the national managing authorities and relevant regional managing authorities and other bodies. So these are the requirements that are behind stakeholder engagement and that have a big influence on the decision-making procedures that are relevant in CAP strategic plan design. I don't want to go too much into detail, but based on the inventory that Berenice mentioned, and a survey we did with managing authorities, we identified key gaps and needs of member states in the CSP design process. And we came up with a number of tools and approaches that we found relevant and effective in supporting CAP strategic design under all the requirements presented before. And this overview just shows you where we allocate these tools that we developed in the whole process of CAP strategic design. So the first tool that we co-designed or improved was participatory vision building, which is something that is a bit outside the pure CAP strategic design process, but it is something that member states can apply to guide agricultural and rural development policies in general. In the process itself, there are a number of prioritization and decision-making tools that we also covered that I will briefly present shortly. And we have 3 tools that are more or less tools to support impact assessment in the CAP strategic design process. This is the intervention logic and the IOI matrix. Both of these will be focusing on today, but also scenario building for policy impact assessment is a suitable tool here that closely links also with the quantitative tools that we have developed in work package 1, so the modeling, and that was already covered, I think, in one of the academy models. And then there is a more overarching guidance on process communication and stakeholder engagement. It's not a tool as such, but it's more some principles that are helpful for member states to take into consideration in the process of CAP strategic design. Of course, these are not the only tools that are there. So there are more tools, and there are also experiences with tools supporting the design process, and they are already listed in the inventory. So if you want to have a better overview, you can always also go back to the inventory and get some inspiration there. What I will do now is give a short introduction in all of the 6 tools that we co-designed and developed before we dive deeper into the intervention logic and the IOI matrix. So the first tool I mentioned is participatory vision building, and this helps to develop a shared vision involving different stakeholders. And it's a bit outside the CSP design process, or it can happen before a process, and it can help to establish long-term goals for agriculture and rural areas. It's a structured approach in selecting and including stakeholders in a collaborative vision building process. And the aim is, or the outcome is, a shared vision that guides strategic planning and decision making. One of the big benefits of such a process is, and it's quite a time-consuming and intensive process, then it enhances also the commitment and alignment among participants. So it helps to create a better understanding of and commitment to the strategies developed in the member states. The second tool is process communication and stakeholder engagement. As said, this is not a tool as such, but it's a selection of helpful approaches that can be used in the design process. We have information here, for example, on digital platforms for sharing information, but also information on how to gather stakeholder inputs through questionnaires and surveys, how to organize workshops, focus group, and so on. And also provides collaborative engagement and feedback integration information. This guidance or these principles help to build trust, ensure transparency, and improve the project outcome as such. Then the IOI matrix, it stands for Intervention Objective Impact Matrix, and it's a tool that can be linked to can be used to link interventions to measurable impacts, and then help to identify whether each policy achieves its intended objectives and provides a structured approach to analyze and communicate the rationale behind policy decisions. We will present this more in detail later, so there was no more information on that. And the intervention logic, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with it, but of course there's always things that can be learned about it. Helps to map the linkages between the objectives of the policy and the intervention, and helps to foster coherence across policy areas such as environment, sustainability, social equity, and economic viability. Also, there will be more on this later on by our colleagues from Slovenia. There is a whole toolbox on prioritization and decision-making tools also that help to prioritize intervention based on their contribution to the CAP and EU goals, and help also to balance short-term needs with long-term sustainability considerations. And here are some examples of the methods we cover in this guidance, as for example, cumulative voting, multi-criteria analysis, or a method for impact assessment of programs and projects. There are a number of decision criteria that are used in these decision-making and prioritization tools, and these can be factors, for example, like impact, the feasibility, or the resources available. And they help to focus efforts on the most critical task and also help to improve efficiency and effectiveness in the implementation. The last tool to present briefly here is the scenario building for policy impact assessment. And this is a tool that builds different policy scenarios, usually once legislative proposals have already been published, and builds the scenario to be used in modeling exercises for policy impact assessment. It helps to identify different plausible futures based on the varying assumptions, and it can evaluate the effects of the policy in each of the scenario. And mainly this is intended to be used at the level of policymakers to help them anticipate and prepare for potential challenges, and supports the informed decision making. This is a brief overview of the tools we have developed, and as a conclusion, there is also this nice table that shows you how for each of the policy tasks are relevant for the CAP strategic design process, and the end user needs, what are the suitable tools for that. I don't want to present all of this, but for example, if you talk about intervention setting and want to see what kind of tools are helping to have coherent intervention strategies aligned with CAP objectives, this can be the participatory the scenario building, the IOI matrix, the intervention logic, and the participatory and stakeholder engagement techniques could be used for that. At this, I will end with the introduction to the tools.